Hi guys, Ryan Fowler here with the great Teresa Kuhn. Another fantastic episode of Inner Masculine Live with Inner Feminine, which is Teresa. This show is going to be freaking awesome because we are going to cover some profound stuff that is not normally covered in the manosphere. It should be. It really, really should be. I said a while back that now listen, all in all, I mentioned Rollo Tomasi from time to time because he's like the father of the red pill. He's done more quality content on male-female intersexual dynamics than anyone else. So all in all, thumbs up to Rollo. Not perfect, but all in all, big thumbs up to him. But I mentioned a while before that he only has half the red pill. And I meant that statement. And that's not a knock on him. Listen, no one, he knows more about, I guess, his area of focus, he knows more than I do. So, but I know some things he doesn't. That's why I have a channel to add my voice and help people. And Teresa Kuhn too. Teresa and I focus on not just what's above the water, the iceberg above the water, but the iceberg below the water. And we're relating that to male-female psychology. What's going on, not just the behavior we observe, evolutionary psychology, that's important, but you really got to look at, conscious behaviors, subconscious belief systems, neurobiology to a point, epinephrine and oxytocin and, dopamine, all that, serotonin, all that stuff. And what is that doing? Subconscious, we got to go through it all to really get a full understanding of what's going on with, for example, the gender war. Why is there so much toxic behavior in Western society that just absolutely devastating? I mean, absolutely, honestly, in many parts of the world, in most parts of the world, or quite a bit, China struggles with this. Japan, to a point, they struggle with some things, others they don't. But just absolute pandemic of toxic male-female relationships. It's not healthy. And honestly, it used to not be like this. Now, I'm not saying in history male-female relationships have been perfect. Of course not. But they've been healthier than they have been today, and there's some really messed up stuff going on. So we want to give you the whole picture. But I guess before I get too deep into that, go ahead and introduce yourself. Say hi, Teresa.
Hello.
And you also brought to my attention the ACE test that we're going to go into a little later as well. And how did you come across that, and maybe explain that just real quick, and then we'll dive into that later as well.
So I'll respond to that question, then I want to add to what you were saying before.
Okay.
The ACE test is called the Adverse Childhood Experience Test. And my understanding of that test is, I think it was Kaiser Permanente did a study of over 17,000 patients who were having trouble keeping weight off. There's this whole industry around weight loss, and people would start and lose like 100 pounds and they gain it all back. And so they wanted to study, like, why was this happening? And somehow they came across this or developed this tool. And there's, me in the details, there's a doctor that was very instrumental in putting all this together. And they found that there were certain childhood experiences that were so traumatic and, in your language, created toxic shame, that it didn't matter that someone was obese, lost the weight. Their identity based on their childhood experiences were linked to, not being good enough, or the weight, not, the weight being protective because of, childhood sex trauma, etc. So I discovered this test. I took the test. I've been sharing it with a lot of people, and it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And
you're like, damn, I thought I was normal. I'm all screwed up.
Oh, well, it's affirming. It is so like with someone who's as sensitive as me, who's gone through what I've gone through, and I take the test and I see, holy crap, of the stuff that I have processed and healed from is remarkable. And everyone that's taken it, it's like a splash in their face. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Teresa and I are both on the other side. Not saying that we're perfect, we're not. But we both had childhood trauma. We both had big internal struggles that we've cleared. And now life is pretty damn good. I mean, there's so much stuff. I know this is the case for you too. In the past, we would have been triggered, messed up by, doesn't trigger us. We're good. We feel good about ourselves. We love ourselves. We know we have value, and it changes everything. I mean, success goes up, but also happiness goes up. All sorts of things do better. And so, by the way, go ahead.
Let me add one thing to that. Yeah. At least for me, it was about having an outside world and an inside world. And I showed up really, really well on the outside world. So if I got triggered, you wouldn't necessarily know that I was triggered in my outside world. So there are a lot of people that process trauma different, right? I was able to hold my stuff together. And as I healed, I became more integrated and more whole, where my outside world and my inner world were more connected. Now, if I have an issue with someone, or someone's, I'm triggered or whatever, I have a way of processing and communicating. Oh, that hurt. Ouch. Yeah. What did you mean by that? When before I would have just internalized it and had to deal, right?
Yeah, and part of it is knowing how to handle adverse situations that trigger us correctly. But would you agree for you that you don't get triggered as nearly as much as you used to?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because a lot of our traumas that cause those triggers are just gone. We fixed, we've gotten them out.
I actually love triggers. I love when something comes up, because that is a billboard. It's a neon sign to say, oh, hey, Teresa,
here's something you got to work on. Here's a wound.
Explore.
Yeah.
And so I may not love it at the moment, but when I have time to process and I can think about it, I'm like, all right, why am I thinking that way, feeling that way? What's the root? So it's just showing me we're never going to be 100%, but it's perspective, right?
Yeah, 100%. And welcome everyone to the show. P-Dubs, I see you. Rosario, thanks for showing up. Eagle Cloud, my good friend Laurent Bernoud. So Laurent and I are building a community on school.com. It's a website that has a combination of course content where I teach people how to do self-hypnosis. I have like 10 hours of video training with 12 audios and all this stuff. We're putting it on there along with the community where everyone can connect with each other and discuss these types of things and frankly help each other up level. Because see, we talk about this stuff, that's great, but we also fix people, or rather show people how to fix themselves, and then they get better. And we've done this for hundreds of people. Teresa, I have referred clients to Teresa, and she absolutely rocks their world. I've done it for hundreds of people, like massively changing lives. The techniques we have are nuclear powered, and I go on all these other YouTube channels and see people talking about, these world leading, psychiatrists and whatnot, doing a lot of good. And I know it sounds like bragging, but you guys will see, because I'm about to release free stuff where you can see for yourself. We get better results than the leading experts, the conventional wisdom, like not just a little bit, a lot. So you guys are going to see that for yourself when the school.com community launches in a week or two. And then there's going to be free content, free self-hypnosis, free training on how to use the self-hypnosis. And right now, to prep for that, you can go to my website and figure out what the hell is going on with our subconscious. intermasculine.com/free-ebook. The ebook is how the subconscious mind works and why it keeps you stuck. It's a 1-hour read, 30 pages. It's going to give you all the fundamentals you need to know to understand why do you self-sabotage? Why do you have anxiety? Why do you procrastinate? Why do you get stuck? Why do you feel bad? You know, it's going to explain how this most important part of our brain that decide 95% of our behavior is subconscious. We're going to look behind the curtain today and show you some really cool stuff today. But start out with the ebook. You can get it right now, and we have free self-hypnosis content to actually help you coming very shortly on school.com. So EC Smooth, also welcome to the show. And EC, you know, EC's actually yeah, he is a longtime fan, and EC knows how effective this stuff is. So EC, one of these days we're going to do that video interview that you were gracious enough to offer. So I need to email him. I need to get that done. So we're going to dive into these clips. So I have to kind of set them up. So the first one is going to show how toxic women in Western society are mightily struggling with toxic shame. They don't, you know, most of them don't even know what it is. You know, no one explains to people, you know, what toxic shame is, how it's messing us up. Well, we're going to show you, and you're going to see women are mightily struggling with toxic shame. So first, it's important for men to understand women, women to understand men, and what we struggle with, because guess what? Helping women helps men, helping men helps women, you know, because we interact with each other and we get relationships with each other. And if you're in a relationship with someone who's toxic, they can destroy your life or come darn close. They can wreck your life. And guess what? If you're toxic, you're probably you most likely to some degree are going to adversely affect their life, if not wreck their life as well. So it's important for us to get where the other's coming from, understand the actual problem, and then work towards solutions. So guys, you know, a lot of this red pill content, this manosphere content is like, look at the behavior of Western women. It's so terrible. And you know what? I agree. I told now again, not all women are damaged. Teresa's a fantastic human being. I've known Teresa for 10, 12 years. You've always acted responsibly with integrity. You've always been kind. You know, I'm imagine you keep me around because I do the same to you, but that's your fault.
It's not because of those big checks you send me.
Yeah. And I could say inappropriate stuff right now. I won't. I'm resisting the temptation. I won't make inappropriate jokes.
And it would be funny and teasing because there's nothing inappropriate.
We'll save it for off camera. Anyways. Yeah.
There's nothing inappropriate
because this is actually a pretty serious topic today. So, but I told Teresa, I said, listen, 80% of American women, United States women, I don't want to date them. You know, 80% of women really are, the behavior in a dating context is really toxic. 80%. You know, maybe 5% would make a good wife. You know, 10, 15% make a good girlfriend. It's like, oh, they're so terrible, this, that, and the other. Well, it's because of trauma. It's because they're wounded, and guys are wounded too. And you know, Western men have their own set of problems. We gotta fix it for both sexes. We honestly do. I've been in Mexico for 6 months. I'm in Costa Rica now. Teresa, again, exhibit A of a fantastic woman, emotionally healthy woman. When I first met you, you were so nice. I thought you were fake. And then I found out, no, she really is authentically nice, you know, but it's because you had healed your core, and I had not fully up-leveled heal yet. And so I just wasn't used to that. That wasn't my world, but, it is now. But say, for example, in Mexico, I'm thinking of, I have met women who actually, they made a mistake. They told me they were sorry. Like, I didn't ask them to apologize. They just did. And I'm like, that doesn't happen in the United States.
What a concept.
She's taken accountability. And just, they, honestly, in Mexico, they're like one step up in just general courtesy, respect, niceness. They really are. And I'm speaking generally because there absolutely are good women in the United States. Again, Teresa, exhibit A. But I have met women who don't do any of the. Now, I met women in Mexico who are absolutely toxic. So I'm not trying to paint a utopia, but I've met women in Latin America who are legitimately sweet, authentic, nice. They mess up, they say they're sorry. In fact, I had one girl where honestly I made a mistake towards her, and she in a very respectful, nice way say, I would appreciate if you wouldn't do this, etc. But she said it in just, she communicated it so well, and I was shocked, and I was like, oh damn, I did screw up. And I apologized to her. I actually bought her like this like little teddy bear to, apologize. But she was so sweet the way she did it, and you don't get that in the Western world. Why not? Well, now these women who are emotionally healthy, I've been dating them. I learned about their family life, their moms together, their dads together, the parents are happy together. Their extended families around on Sunday. They go out to like these family picnics or dinners or just get-togethers at their place where they just have food, and like the extended family of families all there. And these families, again, not all Hispanic families, like there's plenty of toxic ones, but there's happy families in Latin America, like legit, like a large minority of happy families, and these girls are emotionally healthy and honestly great, and they don't exhibit this crazy behavior you see the majority of United States women exhibit. Well, we're gonna go under the cover, pop the hood, look at the engine, look at the iceberg that's underneath the water today, and find out why are so many Western women behaving so terribly. Well, guess what? It's trauma. We need to see it from their point of view. So, and I'm going to tie it all together. But before we go into this, do you have anything to add, Teresa?
I do. The backdrop, the lens, the perspective that I want the audience to consider is there was an absolute policy, there was an absolute agenda towards destroying the family, empowering women, and making fun of men and demoralizing men. There was an agenda behind this. Absolutely not by accident. Now, were there things that needed to change from a society perspective in terms of women, voting and women in the workplace and all of that? Absolutely, totally and completely. And consider like Gloria Steinem, who is considered like the face of feminism way back, and she's in her 80s. So I don't know, maybe 60 years ago, she used to work for the CIA.
Yeah, CIA operative.
She's a CIA operative. So
and that's not conspiracy theory. That's freaking fact.
Oh, yeah, it's a fact, right? And remember what the term conspiracy theory comes from. It comes from the government who wanted to discredit any alternative views as to what happened with JFK. So
yeah, let's throw out the theory of relativity too.
Yeah.
Let's throw all the scientific theories out. Let's throw those out because they're only theories.
So just remember that this is much bigger than just, society. This is policy. This was a concerted effort to ruin relationships between the male and the female. I have my ideas why, and we can go into that in another show, but because I know we've got a lot to do and we only have so much time. But yeah, just consider that the bigger picture.
How much time do you have today? Just
I've got another 30 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's go.
All right, let's dive in. So here we go. If I can figure out how to do this. All right, here we go. Okay, this is Suzanne Venker. We're going to listen to the first 2 minutes. She's going to talk about the problem that really just devastates women, and then we're going to show another clip to see how they behave in light of this trauma. But here's the trauma first.
At the end. The cultural pressure on women to consistently produce in the same way men do, under the guise that career success is more fulfilling than motherhood, and that being in the marketplace is the antidote to losing themselves as a wife and mother or being left high and dry in a divorce, needs to end. Quote, I'm exhausted every single day. My career is going great, but my heart is with my family. I feel weak and ashamed for thinking motherhood and housework is too much to keep up with a full-time job, and I'm suffering. To all the moms out there who are in the same boat, at some point we have to listen to our hearts and stop fighting nature just to meet the status quo. End quote. This is just one of countless emails and social media comments I read on a weekly basis as a relationship coach and a podcast host. And it's one of the saddest realities of life for women today. This woman and millions of others like her were never warned about what happens to women once they have children. At this stage of life, what most women, even the most staunch career women very often, wind up wanting is to nest or to slow down so they can focus on being a mother. But due to cultural conditioning, they do everything in their power to submerge this part of their identity for two reasons. One, they've been groomed to believe they have no value if they're not earning money. That's a big one. And two, for many women, they are their family's primary breadwinner, and they feel trapped. They don't think it's possible to stop working, if only temporarily, the way most mothers have throughout history.
I can't rely on my man to provide. I got to do it. And I don't have worth if I don't make money. Toxic shame, not feeling safe, right there. 2 of the 5 traumas.
In other words, modern married women have become both mom and dad all rolled into one. And so begins their identity crisis. Paul Reinhardt writes at The Federalist, quote, "Here is a common conversation heard in the intimacy of a therapist's office, one that's grown in frequency. The patient is anxious and depressed, often in her mid to late 30s. She's juggled home and work and children for quite some time. Maybe there's a toddler who refuses to sleep, or a teenager who struggles mightily. Day after day, the demands pile up. Her work is never done. She craves more relaxed time with her kids, but how can that happen? Depression or lack of motivation come because physically a woman can't replenish the dopamine and serotonin that her body used to produce more easily. If she burns the candle at both ends with 12-hour days and lost sleep, it will show up as anxiety. Those are the physical realities of life in the estrogen-rich female body," end quote. What makes matters worse is when women learn that their husbands don't share the same experience, which creates huge conflict in the marriage. After all, she and her husband are both earning and parenting, so why is her man able to let go or compartmentalize his life in a way that she cannot? Because what happens to men when they become fathers is markedly different from what happens to women when they become mothers. In fact, it might help to start using these terms again, mother and father, or husband and wife, rather than the more politically correct term partner, so people can begin to appreciate the deeply disparate natures of women and men, which almost always show up once babies come along.
Well, I don't know, Suzanne. According to feminism, we're the same and 50-50 and equal, and it's an even slate. What are you talking about, right?
I love this woman.
Yeah, she's straight up. Finally, someone speaking the truth, right?
And just very, very grounded. I can tell you my experience. You know, I went to law school, and you know, I was very career oriented, and a lot of it came from not just believing that I couldn't really trust anyone. Right? I had to trust myself, and I had to be very, very independent, which is a trauma response, by the way.
Yeah. What caused you to not? What caused you to believe you couldn't rely on anyone?
I didn't have people around me that were trustworthy when I was growing up, right? So the only one that I trusted was myself. And I happened to be smart, and I happened to be curious, and I happened to like school. And so, you know,
I
have an undergrad and I have a law degree. And I was married. And after a number of years, my husband said to me, it's time to have a baby. Like, I want to have a child. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'll do it. And it wasn't that, it didn't, like, I was disconnected from my nature in that regard.
And that's what she's talking about here. Women being told, you got to be a boss bitch. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're worthless because you're not making money.
Totally.
So a woman's true feminism teaches women that their true female nature is not good enough.
Absolutely.
And they call it feminism. They say they're championing women's rights while simultaneously making women feel like shit for who they really are. What a fucked up ideology. It's so toxic.
I am so grateful that I was able to step out of that. And what happened was I was pregnant and had a miscarriage. And my body woke up to my maternal instincts. All I could think about was to have a child. That's all that I wanted. And thankfully, I listened to that instinct and got pregnant and had my son, which could not be more grateful in my life for that child.
You love your son to pieces, and he's a great guy, by the way.
He's exceptional, amazing man, right?
We're talking to him yesterday. Good guy.
You were talking to him yesterday?
Wasn't he on the phone with you?
Yesterday. Oh,
Or the day
yes,
before?
that's right. That's right.
The day or the day before.
So I spent my 30s trying to have another child, and wasn't able to, and that's okay. But I know exactly what she's talking about. And after I had my child, I shifted my life so that I could be with my child and have my child and have my home and still have a career. And I was able to do that very out of the box, but I know exactly what she's talking about. And so many of my really intelligent girlfriends, they worked while had their children, but they worked outside of the home, and they had the daycare, and they had the birth control, and they had a mess. They had an absolute mess in so many ways.
Isn't it interesting how feminism says, men oppress women, marriage is slavery, all of this, but the net effect is women end up a full-time job and kids, and they're working like slaves now.
Like slaves.
They can't sit. That's exactly what Suzanne's talking about. They are now working at an unsustainable level. Life is even much harder now because of feminism. What the hell?
Women are
Tim,
not
welcome to the show, by the way. Tim Costello in the house.
Women are not little men. Women are not little men. Women are not hairless men, right? We are not men. We are not wired to operate like men do. And that is probably a very politically incorrect statement to say today. And if you look back in society, I don't know how many years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, I noticed it before I had my son, that everything was about women power, empowering women. Think about what the Chinese did, right? Aborting women, aborting female babies, right?
One child policy. Yeah. Now they have a huge demographic issue because they don't have enough kids to replace the aging generation. So and it's a massive problem for them. It's going to cause a societal collapse to some degree.
They empowered men. It was all about the boys, right? Here we are empowering girls. You can't mess with Mother Nature. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, men and women each have a role.
Without some really horrendous society impact.
Yeah, our natures are optimized for survival. And if you try and make us something we're not, you're going to impede our ability to survive and thrive.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening. 100%. So we got more to cover, but this is a big issue. We gotta fix society. And as you can see here, it's toxic shame. Women feeling I can't be the mom. Yeah, I can't be the mom who stays home and doesn't make any money. So that listen, mothers, most women, of course, not all, but most women, you got to be there for your kids. And a lot of these women want to, and yet they're at the workplace.
And I'm going to add,
that causes huge internal conflict. And it causes a lot of shame because they feel like maybe they can't perform at a certain level in the workplace, but they're also not there for their kids. And so they feel they're failing at both.
And they're not there for their spouses. They're not there for the father. And
it's just too much, too many demands.
I need to sleep because I need to go to work the next day. So I can't mother my child at night the way mothers should be with their children, right? They don't have a family bed. They're not breastfeeding. They are, there's this whole concept around babies and putting babies in their own room, in their own cribs, and making them sleep through the night. That this is not an accident. When you look at the big picture policy and all the research that came from that, if we want to divide the husband and the wife, what policy, what ideals do we need out in the marketplace of ideals, in society, in culture, right?
Yeah.
And it was about the woman in the workplace. The woman can do it all. The babies, when you have a baby, they need to be independent. They need to be sleeping in their own room. Formula instead of breastfeeding. Like it goes against nature completely and totally.
Yeah, let's replace millions of years of evolution with all these artificial systems that cause huge problems.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's we got another clip here. And this one is going to show women, because of being taught these false ideologies, which, and honestly, it's in their core. They've been taught this since they were a little baby. They're just, you know, osmosis, just taken in from society, parents, everything, who all have these attitudes. The net effect is toxic shame, feeling not good enough, feeling I can't be who I really am. I have to be this boss bitch. I can't just be a mother. My maternal instincts, I have to suppress them. Suppressing emotions leads to depression, just so you know. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about that. Okay, Laurent Bernoux, career women compete with their husbands, have contempt for them. Yeah, you're competing. You're not cooperating now. And then they're like, the women are like, why don't you do the housework? And the guy's like, I mean, that's not how guys are geared. You know, I actually knew a girl who posted on Facebook, and she's like, why do I get excited about buying these cleaning supplies? And again, this is not a misogynistic comment. This is an observation of what a woman told me. And it's like, dude, a guy would never do that, but this girl is doing that. You know, it's like she actually gets a lot of pride from having a very clean place, you know?
And I think there's one more thing I'll add. Today, yeah, feminine process, have a baby, let someone else raise your kid, recipe for disaster. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'll
that's
add
not
one
female
thing.
nature. Female nature is be there for your child.
Be there for your child. Have that
6 months old,
connection.
baby goes in daycare. How terrible.
Be with your child and to comfort them, not leave them in a room, you know, a crib to cry their, you know, need for comfort out. Like,
and this is going to lead to toxic shame. I'm not a good mother.
And I'll add one thing today. There's this huge movement towards entrepreneurship and business ownership, right?
Yeah.
I personally am all about entrepreneurship, and I don't believe everybody is wired to be an entrepreneur.
I agree 100%.
But the status for women today is, I'm not going to work for somebody else. I'm going to work my own business, and I want my spouse and my partner to support me while I'm raising our kids and building this business. And if he can't do that, then there's an issue, right? Like, why can't he do that? Why can't he help me build the business?
Yeah, it's all about her. Me. Why isn't he on board?
Women are doing more work than men. They're being more empowered than men. There's all these, the society is propping up women, and they look at their men and they're like, why haven't you developed emotionally? Why haven't you gone through your trauma? Why haven't you been able to provide for me so I can do all these other things?
Because they're treated like shit, men, in our society generally. They're talked down to. They're made fun of. They're made to look like stupid buffoons, you know, on media, TV, you know. And
I still expect you to turn me on and do everything else. Oh, and by the way, I got off of birth control because I had a baby, and you're no longer attractive to me because I was attracted to you when I was on birth control.
In your, hormones are totally different. You're actually attracted to different people on and off birth control. Women are crazy. Yeah. So pretty insane. So we have another clip here. You've seen the problem. You see the toxic shame, the struggles. Now, before women are married, it's a different picture for them. They're empowered, entitled, and delusional and all this stuff. But then it's an absolute 180. At the core of it all is toxic shame. What you guys have to understand, when you feel deep down you're not good enough, our brain is wired to pursue pleasure. That's dopamine, you know, get the bag, whatever, achieve, get pleasure, etc. But above all, avoid pain, including emotional pain. The most painful emotion is toxic shame. I'm not good enough. This next clip is going to show why women in marriages, in Western marriages, when they feel not good enough, this is why people play the victim. It's why they blame others. They don't take accountability, because if they go inside and face their shame, it feels terrible. And they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what it's about. They don't know how to fix it. They just know, if I go inside and take accountability, look at myself, acknowledge what I'm feeling inside, which is they feel worthless, it's so massively painful. how they cope with it is say, it's not me, it's you. I'm going to place the blame here, here, here. I'm never going to apologize. I'm going to play the victim while simultaneously be empowered. And that's why your average modern Western woman appears crazy. It's because of trauma. So we've seen the trauma. Now, here's another interesting statistic. There's this lady in the UK. I'll have her clip on my show next week. Statistic that 40% of girls age 12 to 16 feel hopeless. There's another statistic. This was by this, it's this association of colleges. Found out 40% of college students in the United States are so depressed they have difficulty functioning. 40%. 60% at some point during the year are overwhelmed, crippled with anxiety. This is not healthy, and this is not normal. I mean, it's normal now, but it should not be normal. We are at an atypical time in human history where we are seeing crippling amounts of toxic shame, crippling amounts of depression, anxiety, and disruption of male-female relationships because of this. And it's just getting worse and worse. It's reaching an epidemic level. We got to fix this. And guess what? Teresa and I, we do have a solution. Start with getting the ebook. You're going to, you can book a session with me. You can book a session with her, by the way. Innermasculine.com. You can go there.
And it's really focused on you, though, with that.
Yeah, I do. You are very busy. You kind of do sessions selectively.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just because I'm doing that. 90% of my work now is hypnosis, the show, etc., helping people. But you still got your full-time. And that was me until beginning of this year. I was full-time doing something else too. I've phased that out. All right. So we got this other clip for you. How much time you got left, Teresa?
I have about I have 10 minutes left.
Okay. We probably don't have time for the ACE test. Might have to do it next week, but I'm going to give it a shot. Here's what you're going to see. All right. When women have toxic shame, this is what kind of behavior it leads to. So I'm explaining why women behave this way in relationships. Now, emotionally healthy women don't behave this way. Karen Seitz here, I played some of her clips before. I really like a lot of what she talks about. And she's going to say why women behave horribly in marriages, the ones who do, which is most of them or a majority of them. She's going to explain why. We're connecting the dots here. Here we go.
It's the very reason a lot of us as women get married is because we don't want the burden and responsibility of our lives. We want somebody else to share the burden with and somebody else to blame when it doesn't work out.
Why do they blame others? Because it's really painful if you have shame in you to go in and say, this is my fault. It's super painful. Teresa and I, when we're wrong, we can admit fault, and it kind of sucks, but we know we're still good. If you know you're still good enough, even when you make a mistake, you can admit to your mistake. But if you feel I made a mistake means I'm worthless, super hard to face that. And so here's the alternative. I'm going to cope with this pain in me by shifting the blame outwards.
And remember the philosophy around no one is coming to save me.
Yeah.
It's all an internal job. It's all an inside job, right?
And these women are already overwhelmed. They can't take anymore.
Right. So I can't take this, put it off because I'm already exhausted. If you come from the place, it's all an inside job and no one's coming to save me, not my marriage or my partner or my boyfriend or whatever, then the person is required to look inside and get help to heal the inside as opposed to the marriage or another person to heal them.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep going. I agree 100%.
I want to take responsibility. And ladies, we know it. As soon as our husband says, hey, you said this and it made me feel this way, or hey, you did this and it really hurt me, we don't hear it. We jump back with our excuses and justifications.
Because you got to avoid the pain of toxic shame. That's what I'm going to justify it. No, it's not me. It's not me. Because saying it is you really hurts if you have toxic shame in you.
For why we said what we said or why we did what we did, and enforce to our husbands that they are wrong. You're wrong for feeling that way. You misinterpreted me. That's not what I meant. We will not take responsibility until we're taught, and we want to. But The fourth and last feature is mutual trust. I posted a short yesterday with probably a very triggering title. You cannot trust a woman. We are wolves in sheep's clothing, and we manipulate to get what we want. So there's no mutual trust. And here's what this one said that I thought was really interesting, is that interdependent couples trust one another to be faithful to the boundaries they've established together. They support each other's personal interests and goals and enjoy time alone or with their own friends. What we have to know as women, and what men need to know about women, is that our whole purpose of emasculating our husbands and emasculating men in our lives is because we don't want them to be successful. And I had to see this about myself and my marriage, that unconsciously, before I got it pointed out and before I could see it, I wanted my husband to fail, because that allowed me to feel stronger and in control in the relationship. And I was terrified that if he got strong in himself and he was successful and he went for his own dreams and his own goals, that he would leave. So we are invested in keeping our husbands down and keeping them weak. And it's not until we want to actually grow and we want to pursue our own dreams and goals.
That ties into what you said. Can't trust men. They're going to leave you. I can't trust them. I'm on my own. Even in a marriage. Is that true, Teresa?
That was true for me. I think that's true for a lot of women. I did not want my husband to fail, though. My former husband. I absolutely did not want that. And I did everything in my power to empower him and help him. And he had a health issue, and I spent decades trying to help him with that. So that wasn't where I was coming from. I don't necessarily relate to that, and I'm not saying that it's not true, but for me, absolutely not. That's not how I'm wired.
And here's one thing is, how do I put this? We always are dealing with overgeneralizing, because real human beings are individuals, and we all have our own individual nuance. And the only mistake Karen makes, if you watch her whole video, is she says all women are like this, and it's not true. She actually makes I'll give you my two criticisms of her. Everything else she says is perfect, and I think she's a fantastic lady. She says passport bros are deluded because women are like this worldwide. That's absolutely not true. Women in different societies, I've seen it. I've lived in the Philippines 2 years, which honestly, Filipino women make fantastic wives, by and large, generally speaking. Some make horrible wives. So again, I'm generalizing. Same thing in Mexico. There are toxic Mexican women, but the Mexican women who are very traditional can be very kind, loving, supportive, and don't behave like this. There's a large portion in Mexico who do. There's a large portion who don't, however. So Karen here kind of takes the position that all women are like this. No, it's wounded women who are like this. And wounded men have their own problems, can be violent criminals, or just the other way, the quintessential nice guy, weak guy. That's trauma too. But then there are emotionally healthy men who people just admire, and they have good relationships, and they don't tolerate toxic women. So they end up finding a good woman in the United States or otherwise. So this is not across the board, but when people are damaged, when women are damaged, this, internally, psychologically, they're toxic, shame, whatever. This is what happens is many of them behave. And this is the woman who's constantly nagging, constantly emasculating, putting down her husband, manipulating, all that. Divorces, and then it's a nuclear explosion. The entire family is wrecked. 80% of divorce filed by women. This is why. This is what's at the core that is causing all this damage, is toxic shame. She's going to actually talk about toxic shame here as the root cause, which profoundly insightful of her. Good for her. We'll keep going.
That we will be a supportive partner. But with our walls up and our emasculating ways as women, we are not capable to be healthy, responsible partners, because we're not a partner to ourselves.
Boom. That's toxic shame. You're not a partner to yourself. You don't love yourself. We'll keep going.
It's all an inside job.
Inside job. If you don't get the inside right, that's what leads to all this outward dysfunctional behavior.
If you can't be a good partner to yourself, if you can't love yourself, you are not capable of being a good partner or loving anyone else. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. So for people who are focusing on the behaviors, you got to focus on the inner world, the root cause. You pull a weed out and you don't get the roots out, guess what? Grows right back.
Right.
Get the roots out. That's what you got to do it. You got to do it. This is the core. This is the truth. This is where it starts. I don't care what anyone else says. You got to address this. And by the way, our methods are better than pretty much any out there by a wide margin for fixing toxic shame. We'll keep going.
Husband's dream, because we don't have dreams of our own and we don't pursue our own goals, and we keep ourselves small and we hide in life, and then we emasculate our husbands for them to do the same. Or let's not even talk about like guy time, right? Or like letting your husband go take time with their friends. Like, don't you go play golf on Saturdays? Don't you go hunting? I grew up in the South. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad's a hunter. My brother's a hunter. And I can remember, and I love my family very much, but I can remember the women getting mad because the men going hunting, and we don't want them to do that. We don't want them to have their own goals because we want them to do what we need them to do or what we are not willing to do for ourselves. So if a woman can learn to be happy in herself and drop her walls and stop her emasculating ways, and she's with a good man, this is what happens naturally.
A woman could be happy in herself. This happens naturally.
And you don't need to practice interdependence, but don't fool yourselves thinking you're going to try to implement these in your relationship when we have these woman ways. So the solution, what I talked about in that video, is we have to provide what we want another to provide to ourselves. Otherwise, we are victims. And what?
Boom, right there. That's true empowerment. That's what feminism says it's doing, but it doesn't. It gives you the opposite. It is a Trojan horse.
So I'll add one thing.
This
you know
is
how
a
I
real
was talking
solution.
about how I was talking about we are not hairless men. We're not little men. Men are not hairy women.
True.
Hairy, men don't necessarily want to go out shopping with us, right? The masculine man, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with men going out shopping or any of
Have
that.
us chop wood, mow the lawn, fix the driveway, fix stuff around the house.
Right.
We're more disposed towards that. And hey, every now and then we'll do the dishes and wash the counter, but make it the exception, not the rule. We'll pitch in, but let men be men. You have no comment?
No. I'm all about
I agree with that.
I'm all about building a team and having people help. So I don't want to be doing those things. I don't want my man doing those things. But
yeah, there you go. Cool. All right, we'll keep going.
People hear in that is, well, then what's the point of a relationship? But I do need these things. And the key is that we have to learn to provide them to ourselves so that we are not victims when they are not provided. And guys, you're right. Like, a part of a healthy relationship, this is just part and parcel with a healthy marriage and healthy relationships: sex, love, respect, care, fun, kindness, communication, trust. Yeah, of course, all those things are part of a healthy relationship. But the key is we don't have healthy relationships in our society. Nobody's ever been taught. And what we do get taught, or what we do read, like in marriage counseling, is actually codependency. We have to learn to have these things within ourselves. And what happens, the nuances, is what happens when we provide to ourselves what we want another to provide to us. And we depend and rely on ourselves in a healthy way as we find our happiness internally. And happiness, I define as feeling good about who we are and having a healthy relationship with ourselves.
That is the opposite of toxic shame. She's talking about fix your toxic shame. Learn to love yourself. Learn to value yourself. Learn to give yourself all the approval, love, validation you need so that you don't need it from anyone else, meaning you don't need to manipulate others to get that. You don't need to do all this other dysfunctional stuff to get ultimately what you can only provide to yourself.
Okay.
The solution is going inward, providing it to yourself. Yes, you can. That is the best way to do it. I've done it for myself. Teresa's done it for herself. You can start with self-talk, just talking kindly to yourself. But ultimately, you need to go in, find these deep-wounded parts in your subconscious and get them out. That's what the hypnosis and the other techniques we use, and not the only technique, but it is the most powerful. And we do it a certain way. Hypnosis is saying, I paint with oils. It's talking about the medium we use, but you got to use certain techniques within that. And honestly, the techniques I use work without hypnosis. Hypnosis just helps them work better, substantially better. Go inside and give yourself that love, like inner child work. You guys Google inner child work, Google Gestalt, Google regression to cause. We do it a certain way that is more effective than conventional ways. But if you want to hear about what we do that, get the ebook. You're going to see how a couple weeks you're going to have access to free self-hypnosis program. It's not going to be the whole program, but it's be enough where many of you can actually get benefit from this program. and actually feel better. Some of you are going to get my free stuff and change your lives, because I know, because I've already done it for hundreds of people, giving them this content that I'm going to give you. And many of them did change their lives. To get, you know, a lot of stuff we need help with, but some stuff you can fix on your very own. Listening to the audio, a little bit of training. It's coming. It's going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be on my school.com community. Start fixing yourself, please. Please
Ryan?
start fixing yourself. Society is starving for this. Maybe they don't know it, but they are. Go ahead, Teresa.
Always a pleasure.
Gotta go. Time's up.
Gotta go. Much love to you.
Okay. Well, that's a
And the
good
audience.
stopping point. And
Bye,
I
everybody.
appreciate you being on. And I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap it up, Teresa. But use this stuff. It's coming soon. Get the ebook now. You have more power than you know. And we got to go. So that's our show. Take care.